Hi everybody, welcome to Reading with Mrs. DeGagne. Today I'm reading you another fractured fairy tale, and one of the reasons why I love this story is because it's written so cleverly and the illustrations are fantastic. So here I go with Snoring Beauty by Bruce Hale and illustrated by Howard Fine. Long, long ago, about 602 years ago last Friday, at 7 p.m., Fairy Standard Time to be exact, the childless King Gluteus and his wife Queen Esophagus got lucky at last. "A baby girl!" Queen Esophagus cried. "I'll eat to that," said King Gluteus. For the rest of us, peasants and milkmaids and frogs, it was business as usual, yada yada, hippity hop. The king and queen threw a big winding for their daughter's christening. They invited every fairy from far and wide. But wouldn't you know it, they left one out. This really cranky fairy named Bibu, who was off hosting a garlic festival. On christening day, the baby girl was named Princess Drachima Lofresca Malvolio Margarine. Poor little tadpole. She smiled and cooed anyway. The dining hall bulged with lords and ladies, and up at the main table with the king and queen sat 7 of the funkiest fairies you've ever seen: Hexus and Blexus, Nostraline and Umpudine, Phlebitis and Tintinnitus, and Fred, who wasn't really a fairy, but no one had the heart to tell him. Just as they began a round of rude fairy songs, the king clapped his hands. "Time to bless the baby." "Eh?" said Tintinnitus, who was half deaf. "Slime and with flesh with gravy? No thanks. I'll be back in a twinkle." And she waddled off. One by one, fairies shuffled past to bless Princess Drachima Lofresca Malvolio Margarine, Marge for short. "She will be the most beauteous maiden in the land," said Hexus. "She will be the wittiest," said Blexus. And on, best dancer, blah, 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 best singer, blah, 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 nicest penmanship, blah, 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 yada, yada, hippity hop. Until, bam, the door blew open. There stood Bibu the fairy. She looked like trouble, and she smelled like garlic. "So sorry I'm late," she snarled sweetly. "The carrier pigeon must have eaten my invitation." She stuck her big bazoo into the crib and barked, "When this baby turns 16, she will be run over by a pie wagon and die." Tintinnitus returned at that moment. "Eh, what's that?" she said. "She'll turn into a dragon and fly?" "Die!" snapped Bibu. "Spy?" asked Tintinnitus. "Die!" shouted the garlicky one. "Oh my," said Tintinnitus. With a grumble and a growl, Bibu blasted off. Tintinnitus turned to King Gluteus and Queen Esophagus. She could not undo Bibu's gift, but she could bamboozle it. "My blessing is that, instead of turning into a dead dragon," "But Bibu said," the king began, "your daughter will become a sleeping dragon," Tintinnitus continued. "And one day she'll be awakened by, a prince?" asked the queen hopefully. "A quince," said the fairy. "Good idea." And poof, she was gone. First thing the next day, King Gluteus banned all pie wagons from the kingdom. In fact, he banned all pies, even mud pies. "That should stop the curse," said the king. "Let them eat cake," sang Queen Esophagus. Years hopped along like a toad with arthritis. Prince Marge blossomed and grew. And as she grew, she became kind and beautiful, sweet and clever. As the fairies promised, Marge could sing like a nightingale, dance like sunlight on the water, sew a wedding dress blindfolded, make chocolate cake from dirt and rocks, build a house in a single day, yada yada, hippity hop. The fairies forgot just one thing. She was too perfect. Nobody wanted to play with a girl who could do everything twice as well as they could. Princess Marge was lonely. The day the princess turned 16, an old woman in a wagon rolled up to the castle. "Let me in," she pleaded. "I bring a yummy-nummy treat for the princess." The young guard spied a wagon full of pastries, round as wheels. A sweet smell made his belly rumble. Yummy-nummy indeed! After so many years, he didn't know a pie from a pollywog. The guard opened the gates. The wagon trundled inside. At that very moment, "What are the odds, I ask you?" Marge was crossing the road to the cake shop. The street was steep, the wagon wobbled, and before you knew it, the pie wagon swerved and crunched over her foot. "Yow!" cried Princess Marge, and just as Tinnitus foretold, "Alley bam!" Marge turned into a dragon, and alley beep! She fell deeply asleep. Now, legend says that the whole castle conked out too. Yeah, right. Here's what really happened. The sleeping dragon princess began to snore. And besides being the fanciest dancer and best cake baker in the kingdom, Princess Marge was, naturally, the loudest snoring dragon. Did everyone rush to congratulate Marge on her perfect snores? They did not. No one comforted her enchanted sleep. The dragon princess dreamed lonely dreams. Days passed. No one could sleep with the racket and ruckus. Those with carriages visited far-off kingdoms. Those without wore earplugs and shouted. The king did what kings always do. He made a proclamation. "King Gluteus wants you to break the curse and awaken his sleeping daughter with a quince. Use of quince to be determined by applicant. Reward, half the kingdom, the princess's hand in marriage, and a set of elf-made garden furniture. Employees of castle not eligible. If princess awakens but remains a dragon, tough luck, you still have to marry her. Offer not valid in the kingdoms of Smorg, Spiffle, and Quog. Void where prohibited." Men came to test their luck. With brass and bluster and bright ideas, they tried to awaken the dragon princess. One spooned quince curry between her lips. Marge snored on. One tickled her with leaves of a quince tree. Marge snored on. One pelted her with ripe quinces. Close, but no cigar. Marge snored on. Months passed. Suitors came and suitors went. They sang quince songs and baked quince pies. They told quince jokes and sighed quince sighs. They built a quince alarm clock that squirted jam and jelly. They made a quince-filled rubber ball to bounce upon her belly. But nothing worked. Yada yada hippity hop. Marge snored on. Then one day, a dusty young man clip-clopped into town. "What's that awful noise?" he asked a milkmaid. "What?" she shouted. "I can't hear you. I'm wearing earplugs." She took them out. "I said, what's that noise?" bellowed the man. "No need to shout," said the milkmaid. And she told him Marge's sad, sad story. The man studied the dragon princess. She was pretty cute for a dragon. He timed her snores. He leaned into the blast, ears ringing. His hair blew back, but he puckered up. Then, smack! Blink! Those dragon eyes popped open and yada yada hippity hop. Marge's scales melted, her tail shriveled, and she shrank back into a human girl again. "Are you a wizard?" she asked the man. "Golly, no. I'm a prince," he said. "Prince Quince, to be exact." Well, the king kept his word, and in 2 shakes of a frog's flipper, the prince and princess got hitched. This time, all the fairies in the land were invited. The kingdom whooped it up with a hey nonny 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 and a hot cha cha. Do you love me? Asked the princess. With all my heart, said the prince. Even though I'm the best at everything? Prince Quince smiled. Honey, nobody's perfect. At last, the newlyweds tiptoed off to their chambers, where they whispered sweet nothings and drifted to sleep. Later that night, something awakened the prince. Prince Quince sighed. He kissed his wife's cheek, stuffed some earplugs into his ears, and rolled over. And despite the truly royal ruckus, they lived happily and noisily ever after. So, while Princess Marge was great at everything, she still snored. So nobody is perfect. But that doesn't mean we can't do our best to be our best every day. And that's what I'm going to take away from Snoring Beauty. I hope you have a wonderful day doing your best to be your best. See you next time on Reading with Mrs. DeGagne. Bye.